I'm Jason Little, and this is 10 minutes off the top of my head. We're talking about them. We're talking about they. Who are they? What do they want? What are they doing to you? What are they doing for you? How are they coming against you? How are they on your side? Who are they? We always hear they, them, they, whatever. We're investigating who they are. And I've told you so far, and again, this is all my opinion, okay? You can disagree with me. Feel free to do so. Comment, like, and subscribe the video. But comment all you want to. We can talk about it. You can possibly change my mind. I don't know. I'm not right about everything. I don't claim to be right about everything. I don't have all the answers. These are the conclusions that I've come to at this point in my life. They may change in the future. Just like I told you on the last video, I believe it was the last video, that 5 years ago, you could not have convinced me that angels came down from the sky and had relations with human women and created these giants that walked the land. By the way, those giants are the titans of Greek mythology. Some of them are the gods of different cultures throughout the earth. And you say, well, how can that possibly be? They were all destroyed. Yes, they were, but the memory of them were not. Noah knew about them, Shem knew about them, Ham knew about them, and Japheth knew about them. And if you think they didn't tell their kids about it, you got another thing coming. They certainly did. And these stories were carried down throughout the ages by those children. Now, the flood happened. They were destroyed, wiped off the face of the earth. And then Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth and their wives departed from the ark and began to repopulate the earth with people. And there's all kinds of theories and speculations, but I want to deal with just the basics because I want us to get an idea of who they are, who them are, so that we can understand and move forward and get to that blessing that I keep promising you that's coming in the future. If you have eyes to see and ears to hear, it's coming. Okay, so, excuse me. So Ham, one of the sons of Noah, it says here in the Bible in Genesis chapter 10, that Ham had a son named Cush, and that his son Cush had a son named Nimrod. And it says this, he was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it is said even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, and the land of Shinar. Out of that land went forth Asher, and builded Nineveh, and the city Rehoboth, and Kala. And reason between Nineveh and Kala, the same is a great city. So we see this tremendous civilization beginning with Babel, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But here we have Nimrod, this great hunter before the Lord, and he became incredibly famous. He pretty much, the way that I've read it, and I encourage you to go and read about him, and check out every source that you can about him and read about this guy. He was pretty much the world's first dictator. And he ruled with an iron fist. And he was an evil, rotten, no good guy. But we have a constellation in our night sky. If you'll go outside and look up in the sky, you'll see 3 stars that come across this way. It looks like some stars going this way, and a star here, and a star here, and a star there, and a star there. That's Orion, the mighty hunter. And there's a lot more stars in the constellation, but that's Orion, which is Nimrod. Same guy, which is also Osiris for the Egyptians, Apollo for the Greeks, and so on, and so on, and so on. And he's all these different people. Gilgamesh. He's all these different people. And you say, well, that's impossible. There was just one guy. It was Nimrod. Well, or Orion, or Gilgamesh, or Osiris or Apollo. He's all those people. How can that be? Well, they began to build a tower. The tower, what we call the Tower of Babel. Okay? And they were building this thing, and what did it look like? Was it a pyramid? Was it a tower that went straight up like a modern day skyscraper? Was it a minaret like what you see next to a mosque? Was it a what do you call it? Obelisk, like we see in Washington, D.C. The Washington Monument is an obelisk. Why is it that there's an Egyptian building in the capital of the United States of America? Anybody know the answer to that? I do, but we'll save that for another video. Okay, so let's continue here. Nimrod, this guy's building something, a tower, and you've seen depictions of it in art. And this tower he built on a plain in Shinar, and he wanted to build something huge. So they found a plain where it was nice and flat, and there was a lot of land for a base to build something tremendously large. And there are reports, there are musings, if you will, speculations that this tower was incredibly huge. Incredibly huge. There's other speculations that perhaps what they were building was not necessarily a tower, but a Stargate. And you may be familiar with the movie Stargate from, I think, 1996, 97, somewhere back in there, 99 maybe 2000, whenever it came out. But you can check that out for more information about Stargates, because it gives you information about what a Stargate is believed to be. And so they possibly were building a Stargate. Maybe they were building a huge building, a pyramid, whatever. But we know that they were building something, and it made God very furious. And he confounded the language of all the people. And that's it. That's all we got in the Bible. So think about this for a minute. Why were they building the tower? Well, because Ham told Cush about the flood. And Cush told Nimrod about the flood. And Nimrod was a dictator, and he got all these people together, and he said, look, fellas, we're not going to let God do this to us again. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a tower, and we're going to go to heaven, and we're going to kick his rear end, and we're going to take over heaven. That's what he did. That's what he was doing. That's why they were building the Tower of Babel, because they were going to invade heaven. And some of them were doing the building. Some of them were training for warfare against God. And some of them were getting ready to put their gods that they were beginning to worship in place of God in heaven. So we have this from history. Go look it up. Go read about it. I'm not going to give you everything. I'm not going to spoon feed everything to you. I've done a lot of investigation and research into this stuff. So go look at it on your own. And I encourage you to do it, because you won't believe me unless you read it for yourself. But that's what was going on. Now, I want to point this out, because this is absolutely the truth. In those days, there's no civilization, no ancient civilization that ever believed that we lived on a globe, that we were spinning 1,000 miles an hour at the equator every day, 1,000 miles an hour. Actually, be this way, right? And then spinning around the earth, revolving around the sun at 66,000 miles an hour, revolving around the center of the Milky Way galaxy at 550,000 miles an hour. Nobody believed that at all. That was not their cosmology. They believed in a flat, enclosed earth. They believed that the sun and the moon revolved around the face of the earth. And they believed that there was a dome structure that was the sky, that what we see is the sky, and that they were building this tower to go up to that dome structure, to the top of it, break through it to heaven, and then go and confront God. And God looked down on them, and he said, now nothing will be withheld from them. Anything they imagine to do, they're going to be able to do it. This is after the flood. Now, God's already promised that he's not going to destroy the world by a flood, and God had also promised that he was going to send a redeemer to mankind. And so at this point, we've got all the people of the world pretty much together in one group, and they're working on a common goal with a common language. And let me see if I can find that real quick, because I do want to read that. Verse number 1, chapter 11. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar. And they dwelt there. And they said one to another, go, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, go, let us build us a city, and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. And so God did this, and the rest of it took its course. So he came down, confounded their language, and you got two people talking, y el otro hombre no puede entender nada de usted, y entonces ellos no pueden trabajar juntos, and they couldn't build their tower. And so the guys that spoke one language got together and identified each other, and the guys that spoke another language, the same language, they all got together. And the people that began to split up according to their languages, because they were the only ones that could understand each other. There was no Google Translate in those days. Didn't exist. And so they began to break off and go separate ways. And so then you have this dispersion around the world where now people are spreading out around the world and they're replenishing the earth and filling the earth with people. They are doing this. But God confounded their language because they were trying to invade heaven. And that's the truth. And that's the way that it was. Go look it up in history. Go read Josephus. Go read a bunch of other people. Go read a bunch of scholars. You can find this information out. It's there. The truth is there. You have to look for it. Now, I just gave you a ton of information. And I just told you a ton of stuff that really did happen. And this guy, Nimrod, we're going to talk more about him in the next video. But he was not a good fella, not at all. He was an evil, wicked man. And he ruled the whole world when he was here on the earth. And there's some very interesting things about him. But we'll catch that on the next video. God bless you. See you then.